it is good to be unpredictable. My view is in foreign policy that that's just phenomenally stupid. And what you want is you want world leaders and other countries to actually know what U.S. foreign policy is, and that we don't flip back and forth and backtrack. And I just wanted to have you amplify a little more. Is it your view that being unpredictable is a good thing in foreign policy, or is it a bad thing?
There's an argument for and against, but my opinion is it's very much a bad thing. I think the way that our rivals in the Syrian context, Russia and Iran and the regime, look at it is it's not being unpredictable. It's not what I think the White House frequently calls it, which is strategic ambiguity. I think, frankly, it's just an excuse for indecision. And as I say, it did take us a year to make a speech about what we think we want Syria to be sometime down the line. We didn't give a strategy, we didn't give a timeline, we didn't show any means to get there. So I think the way our adversaries see it, which is I think the most important answer to your question, is it makes us look confused.
Thank you. I think it's actually even worse than that. It's not just unpredictable, it's that the same Trump administration will simultaneously put out exactly opposite viewpoints and take opposite actions. So I'll give you an example in the Middle East, as you all are familiar with their Saudi-led blockade on Qatar. And if you remember, you had Secretary of State Rex Tillerson publicly saying, no, 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 this is a bad idea, do not do economic blockade, it's basically an act of war. And then you had the President of the United States basically contradict him essentially the same day in the Rose Garden later, saying, taking credit sort of for doing this blockade. And then later you had the State Department selling billions of dollars of weapons to Qatar. So if someone's looking at that, they get their impression, I think, that the Trump administration has no idea what they're doing. So now let's talk a little bit about Syria. So in terms of Turkey, last July, the Center for Security Policy put out that Turkey reveals the location of American bases in Syria, and that the Pentagon was quite concerned about that. They didn't want that to happen. Turkey went ahead and did it anyways. We then see more recently in a Reuters report on January 31st that Turkey essentially is telling the U.S. that we should end our support for Kurdish YPG fighters or risk being targeted by Turkey. In fact, they had some pretty specific remarks that I view as threats to U.S. troops and our policy there. Given sort of Turkey's increasing, what's a good way to put it, ability to sort of take on the U.S. in ways we don't like and to sort of oppose our foreign policy interests, do you think it's time that we get some truth out there so we all understand that the Armenian genocide happened? It is a historical fact, and the only reason that that resolution has not been passed is because we want to keep relations with Turkey. Is it now time to pass that resolution and tell Turkey that, look, if you're going to take these actions against us, we're going to now tell the truth and do some things that you just might not like? And anyone on the panel can answer that.
I'll jump in only because I want to continue the same conversation we were having about Turkey. The thing is, if you want to judge anything that happened over the past 4 years or 3 years with Turkey, the context is really, really bizarre. I mean, we were fighting a proxy war against a terrorist group on their border using a proxy group that they view as a terrorist group and that is their existential enemy. So imagine, flip it around. Imagine we were to go to southern Syria to fight Al-Qaeda, and we were to use Hezbollah to do it. How do you think the Israelis would react? So as the Israelis say it, I'm not passing judgment on the militia in question, but as the Israelis would see it, that's how they would see it. So everything they do, I'm judging in that lens. Now, separately, something else is going on in Turkey that's kind of obfuscating everything, which is politically the place is taking a very worrying turn. And its leader is also taking a very worrying tone. I'm trying my best when I think about this from a policy sense, and I think everybody ought to try to disaggregate these two things. Turkey is not going to attack US troops. That is Erdogan speaking. However, Turkey is going to do things like reveal our bases, because that is to the extent to which they can provoke and anger us. Now that ISIS is sort of behind us in the rearview mirror, I'm hoping we can continue with our lives. and go back to some degree of normalcy and have a normal state-to-state relationship. But under those circumstances, I don't think it would be realistic to expect it to be anything but this hostile and bizarre.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ted.